Three,
Three,
two,
two,
one.
one.
You are listening to the Overwatch Rundown, a weekly podcast covering the latest in esports scene of competitive Overwatch. Today is May 6th, and we are covering Stage 3, Week 5 of the Overwatch League. Jax, another stage done. Playoffs done. We're not covering the playoffs in this episode. I want to just start off to remind everybody we are splitting our stage ends into two episodes. So this one being stage 3, we're at the end of it. This episode, we're covering what happened during the regular stage games. Tomorrow, that's going to be May 7th. We're going to have another podcast come out. That's specifically going to be on the playoffs that were taking place today. So make sure you come back here on Twitch or listen to us on the podcast too when that's released. Both of these podcasts hopefully a little bit shorter for everyone. Jax, that said, I think we have a little bit to talk about this
I
week as
meant
a
to
few
take
things came out.
screenshots of the standings after each day so that I would know who still had a chance, right? Because I think coming into week 4, there were 6 or 7 teams that still had a chance at the playoffs. It was a very outside chance. They needed all kind of help, but the chance was still there. And when it comes down to it, all you want is the chance, right? Because if you don't have a chance, then you're the Shanghai Dragons or the Dallas Fuel and Florida Mayhem, who have no chance at anything really. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, that's life.
two of the teams sort of on the outside as a surprise for the stage being Seoul Dynasty and London Spitfire.
I believe at going into the final week, Seoul Dynasty definitely had a chance. The London Spitfire, I think, even I'm looking at the final standings here for regular season, and I'm like, holy crap, did they really finish there? So obviously they had a chance because they finished above the people we were just talking about. But the Spitfire needed multiple teams to lose. They need to get 4-0, 4-0, some random, numbers like that, and very outside chance. But I
Yeah,
think a month ago, a little over a month ago, when we sat down and we said, we're looking at stage 3 and who thought would make it to the playoffs. Neither one of us would have said London Spitfire would not make it. That's mind-boggling. That's for them to drop off like they did Liplos.
absolutely. Definitely a little bit worrying. And we have some discussion of their matches as well this week too. Obviously, when we do the full rundown of the Overwatch League matches. But Jax, overall, I mean, the last couple of weeks we might have said they're pretty good. I mean, the stage overall. Let's talk about this.
Right.
Stage overall started off really strong. A lot of games going to, or a lot of matches going to 5 rounds this
Yeah.
stage. Uh, that said, by the end of week 4, I think we were feeling a little exhausted. Just as a viewership, right? Like the numbers this week as well as we're entering the 5th week. I think there was a day that we had. Listen, don't quote me on numbers. I want to be sort of like Nate here and not claim ownership of any numbers, but I'm pretty sure I saw at least on the English stream that numbers dip below 100,000 on a
I I
couple of the major
I know
matches.
they did Lepelos, and on one day I want to say it didn't make it over 100,000. It was 8790. I think Slasher, the leak boy, he actually tweeted about it, and I just take a look at our own podcast, right? One of our most dedicated listeners, viewers, Toasty Lock, he himself has said he's burned out of Overwatch. I think 2 weeks ago, he's our clock guy. I'm coming to him, I'm like, wait, I've been talking, I haven't seen a clock. He fell asleep, Levels, because he was tired of Overwatch. He didn't even give us a clock to end out the show. My fatigue started in stage 1, but that was more to do with the map pool. Now it's so much to watch, man. It's how can, like, you and
How can
I.
they increase the size of the league and keep things interesting? I still think part of this is our expectation of every game being exciting is maybe
Right.
unrealistic when like you don't go into every 76ers match and expect them to be a really tight and interesting game. You know what I mean? Like you don't cheer for the Leafs and expect them to win the Stanley Cup
The
in
Leafs,
hockey.
Lepelos, Toronto Raptors. It's the playoffs.
Well,
Your Canadian team playing LeBron James and the Cavs, not doing so well.
well, I
But
mean, such is the way of Toronto teams for the most part, and that was sort of the point I was trying to make about the hockey team as well. Like they have a large winless streak, and Jax, we have to talk about that this week as well. We'll come up
I'm
to
so
that.
sad.
Who am I talking about? Of course, we're talking about Shanghai Dragons. Some changes going to be needed there,
I mean, if you want
but
to talk
let's bring it
winless,
back though.
yeah, I'm looking at the first game we have of week 5 between Philadelphia Fusion and Dallas Fuel. That to me screams winless right there, because Dallas is, well, Dallas.
Not only are they Dallas, but they're Dallas without an effect.
They lost every game since they beat Shanghai in week 1. I think that was one of the last games Coach Kai Kai was actually coach of the Dallas Fuel. Maybe it was the Gladiators. I think it was the Gladiator game. It was the second, very last game. But you look at the Dallas Fuel right now, and even the most diehard Fuel fan has to be concerned. Temple of Anubis versus Philadelphia Fusion Lepelos 1-0, Fusion, Numbani 1-0, Nepal 2-1, and in Junkertown it got competitive, and the Dallas Fuel won that one 5-4, but the series was already over. I mean, back-to-back shutouts here, 1-0, 1-0 on Anubis and Numbani,
Horrible way to start. You cannot start your games like this. I think I mentioned this maybe on TeamSpeak here at one point, Jax, but if you want to be a good team, or if you want to improve as a team, the maps that you need to look at your matches to win are the first and last maps, right? Like if you're like Shanghai, Florida or Dallas, right now you need to be looking at those two modes, whatever they are for your current stage. The first map, the last map, you want to enter well, you want to exit well, and have a good showing here. Here, Dallas able to get the 5-4 on Junkertown a little strangely. I'm not gonna like. Obviously, you like to see Seagull in there and doing work, and you like to see them having fun, I guess, as well. But you can't say that Dallas was largely effective in competing with Philadelphia Fusion here, and that's a poor sign at the end of the stage.
The thing that got me was you look at Numbani, and that one was a 1-0, but the thing is, the Philadelphia Fusion attacked first, so they held Philadelphia Fusion to 72% Lepelos. And then you go on your attack, they didn't even get a tick, let alone, they didn't even get this. It's getting to the point where in stage 1, I told you I don't care about the Florida Mayhem. Right now, I don't care about the Dallas Fuel. It's just that team is burning so hard. It's hard not to stay on the outside and look and just to watch the Flames as they go up, dude.
Yeah, and feel bad for the players that are on it that are like. Do you see many of these players? Like I see Effect eventually finding another team, although his burnout issues and frustrations with the team might.
I mean, he'll be back for stage 4.
I'm talking like season 2 though. Like look at these other players. Coco, do you see him in Overwatch League in season 2? I'm not sure.
It depends on the level of expansion that we see. The players are going to have to come from somewhere, Lepelos.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and not everywhere have the connections that Outlaws
4 to 6 more teams. That is a lot of players that are going to have to be produced. And while Contenders has some...
I'm just going to ask you, Jax, about this one, because we're just going to interrupt here and then say, if you take that many players out of Contenders... What's good Contenders in a year's time then?
The cycle continues, right?
Jax, we're not doing it in Blizzard We Trust this week though. We're gonna leave this open-ended question. I think we're gonna root back to this.
It's in the
next
players,
week.
right? Those who are not known Lepelos, those who are currently stars in the open division. Well, now the Contenders slots have opened up, so we'll just feed them until and then we have. While there's no relegation, right? There's no I guess these are the minor leagues. Then we'll see how strong the system is, the path to pro that Blizzard likes to talk about,
and how strong the Overwatch League itself is doing monetarily, and sponsorships and all these other things.
Ladder play in ranked to open division to Contenders to Overwatch League.
Speaking of open division, though, Jax, let's go ahead though and move along and talk about the big open 0 we have in the Florida Mayhem versus Gladiators. That's the 0-3 score line
You
here.
look at this, Lepelos, and you'll say it's the Florida Mayhem. It's no surprise. This very easily could have been 3-0 the other way. The you will know that I often talk about the Gladiators as not being closers, as not being champions who shut out, just should not shut out, shut down a team and end a series. The reverse was here. Florida had every map in their control and lost it.
Yeah, and importantly too, they drew on Anubis off the start. Gladiators not formerly that great at Anubis, I'll say that. So it could have started better for Florida. It could have gone every single map better for Florida. But Jax,
On almost every, if you take a look at it, the draw was on Anubis. I can tell you, having watched that, this was a loss by the Florida Mayhem, who had more time. They had a extra attack that the Gladiators didn't have. You go to Numbani, and it came down to the final fight where you didn't get the cleanup, you didn't shut them down, and the Gladiators were like, okay, we'll take it. Nepal, take a look at that, 100-51, first round of Florida Mayhem. Then the Gladiators took the next two, 100-99, 100-99, very, very close game. And then you go to Junkertown. Junkertown, not as close, but I kind of got the sense that Florida had fallen apart mentally. And even though Saya Player was Saya Player, Sure 4 stepped up, did his job on the Widow, and they got it done
against Side Player too, who has been doing very well.
I mean, Side Player
All
did.
right.
I mean, did. I mean, these are just final blows on this particular screen that I'm looking at. But Side Player had 14 final blows. Sure 4 had 11. You see, so Side Player was doing it. It's just the rest of the team wasn't there, Lepelos. And
a continual story we hear about these like top tier players. Jax, I want to pause for a second here and talk about these first two matches because there's a playoff implication between Philadelphia and Gladiators, and both of these teams having a little bit of failure in different way. Gladiators, Temple of Anubis, you drew a map, so that doesn't affect your scoreline, but you don't get that +1 for winning that map. On the other hand, Fusion, Junkertown, you lost that to Fuel in a 5-4 go at it, and that's gotta hurt your chances when you're fighting with specifically Gladiators. Both of these teams trying to do their best not to, ensure the best chance to make it into the playoffs.
They like to run it down our throats that every map matters, but it does, because the tiebreaker is not, head to head. It is map differential. And when you look at the first 3 games of week 5, you have Philly, Dallas, you have Florida, Los Angeles Gladiators, and you have Houston, San Francisco.
Which we're going to get into right
both of those two in the last game of day 1, they're hunting hunt for the playoffs. Every game matters here. It depends on how these teams weigh the individual stage playoffs compared to overall league end of season 1 playoffs. But if you're the Philadelphia Fusion, you're let down by that, especially after the start they had 1-0. 1-0, 2-1, Nepal was 2-1, and then to lose Junkertown 5-4 against a Fuel team that, well, you shouldn't be dropping any maps to. But then, Lepelos, you go to San Francisco Shock versus the Houston Outlaws. Volskaya 4-3 Houston, Numbani 3-2 San Francisco, Nepal 2-1 Houston, Route 66 3-2 San Francisco. Go to the tiebreaker of Oasis 2-0 San Francisco. And while they got the win, that +1 map, differential does you, a little good. But if you're the Houston Outlaws, you just have to, what happened?
I mean,
last stage 1, this would have been the reverse here. We would have saying Houston, no surprise there, beating San Francisco, and now the reverse.
Yeah, it's interesting watching what's happening with Outlaws, because they still don't seem to know themselves. Now they've gotten away from using clockwork whatsoever. I mean, first off,
we see him later, but yeah, you're right in this series.
Yeah, I mean, we do see him later, but that's also goes to what I'm saying. I don't think that they're entirely set on anything yet, and that's sort of clear because nothing's really set. They had Factor Fiction in as a main tank, and Jax. I mean, I get this idea of having different styles, but if they're not well practiced around those styles right now,
I mean, I can only hope that they put a decent amount of scrim time into it. The Houston Outlaws are one of the teams that I have some idea about their coaching structure. That they have a tank coach. They have, oh my goodness, what was his Mezar, formerly of Team Liquid. He played main tank at the professional level. So they have a tank that focuses just on that. But I think they talk about Factor Fiction being a more aggressive tank, whereas Muma reserve doesn't die as much. And I think they're still trying to find that balance. And when you run Jake on a tracer, right? Jake not really the best tracer. Do you want a more reserved Winston, or do you want a aggressive Winston? You have to I'm sorry, just to be honest here. You have to offset Jake's lack of skill on tracer on that damage output
Yeah.
that isn't there. It has to come from somewhere, Lepelos.
These are very good questions that they're themselves trying to figure out. It matters more about how you play as a group. I don't think their dive is tight enough to play an aggressive style right now, though, with a tracer that they have, because the coordination's not there. I get it. They're working on it. It's not there right now. Maybe Stage 4 results, we'll comment on that when it arrives, because Stage 3, they were lackluster. Here, they disappointed you in your prediction. I got the San Francisco Shock pick right. Can't say the same, though, as we move into day 2. I was hoping for the Mayhem to pull things together at least for 1 week. I was not impressed with them against Gladiators. I was hoping that they're preparing themselves against Shock well here. They did not, though, Jax. They looked absolutely flat here. Here's the scoreline. San Francisco Shock, Temple of Anubis 2-0, Blizzard World 3-1, Nepal 2-0, and Route 66 3-2 for the side of the Shock. And I have to say, Nevix played an incredible game here, shutting down.
I look at the Nepal map specifically because, King of the Hill is more about your capability as fighting as a team, right? You're brawling. You look at Nepal here, Lepelos, 100-13 San Francisco, 100-7 San Francisco. They didn't even put up a token defense here. This was this actually concerns me when it comes to expansion, because I mentioned earlier I've already got the Dallas Fuel on my I don't care list. The Florida Mayhem had been moving from my I don't care list to, okay, you have me intrigued. And this result here, fantastic for San Francisco.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at this, from the outside, this is what I want to see from a San Francisco team on the ascendancy. I don't want a 3-2 or 3-1. I want you to come in and beat someone that is not very good and beat them 4-0 like this here. San Francisco, no complaints here. The coaching staff, Coach Brad, formerly of Selfless, fantastic work here. I think he's still trying to figure out when to play Sinatra, when to play Dante. I think that's something he still has to figure out. But the team is producing. For Florida, a Saya player, this is a Saya player who he couldn't really do much, Lepelos. And I'm looking at Tavik and I'm saying, what happened to Tavik?
Yeah.
Hey,
let's talk about it. Tavik looking a little quiet. Nevix, on the other hand, looking like he's doing what he needs to improve into his new role for the Overwatch League. Not that he's at the best diva. I'm not going to say that, but he's so incremental improvements are happening here on the Shock, and that includes Nevix on.
When it comes to Nevix, diva, we don't have any insight, and you talk about how he's been improving. I wonder how much of that, Lepelos, is the threat to his position, because they signed Choyo Bin. We have not. I think he might still even be in Korea, but that means when they sign him, that means the competition is there. That means your replacement is there. And that means that if you want to keep your spot, you've got to produce. You've got to step it up. And I'm just wondering.
It might still happen too, though, right? Once the language barrier is overcome here.
But yeah.
And to also be fair, though, maybe the switch up now having Super play more often instead of Nomi has had a positive impact. I think it's had a positive impact on the Shock. Clearly, you look at their performance this stage, definitely has had a.
It's that. It's not just that. But you notice a name we have not mentioned here, that at the start of the season, what are you talking about? Where did he go? Where is Baby Bay, Lepelos?
Yeah,
we games now. We have not mentioned Baby Bay at all.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Architect.
He's put back into the cradle, Jax. But talking about the whining, I'm pretty sure the Mayhem have a few tears to wipe up themselves after another rad.
You look at the Florida Mayhem,
another poor stage here.
While Tavik is not the Tavik of old, he still has flashes of brilliance. So
they have moments, but Jax, every team has moments except for maybe Well, yeah. Even dragons have like moments. Okay, Jax,
The-
we're
al-
gonna
but
move on though.
also
Talk
have
about the
also
second
also
game here.
have to point out though right quick that the head coach, I think we are talking about it in the pregame, right? We're talking about burnout and fatigue.
Yeah, this is
The
true.
head coach of Florida Mayhem, mineral levels. His was a physical. It sounded like he was physically going through some issues, but also mentally, and he has now stepped away from the team because he has to recharge. And they said, "You're welcome back. Whenever you feel that you're ready to come back." But we've had players now fatigue. Now we've got a coach fatigue. We've got viewership fatigue levels. While you and I feel, is the league asking too much from everyone?
I don't think so. I
You
think
don't
this
think so?
I'm
There's a
I'm
lot of
saying this is
fatigue here.
professional. I'm saying this is professional sports, and I think the issue is personally that they hype up everything, right? Everything is hyped, right? Every fight matters, right? And this goes back to maybe what I was saying in the precast, where you have people doing vods like every fight really matters to the nth degree, and it's like no, not like there's a fallacy in that thought, right? That can you imagine going through a baseball game and pretending like every single pitch was the most important pitch ever
I
and being
think
hyped up?
someone, I
That
think
would be
someone posted,
incredibly frustrating, and you would definitely get tired of that as well.
someone posted a screenshot once of the coach for New York Excel, his spreadsheet that he had, and I looked at that. I'm saying, you're insane. It levels. They literally broke. It was almost like a fight by fight breakdown, like you're
I
talking
mean,
about.
if you're a
And
stats guy, if you're an analyst, that's perfect. That's what you'd want to do.
right,
That you're paid to do that. Is it important to believe and do that for spectators? No, I don't think it's helpful. Like obviously, every fight can be fun or interesting, but don't pretend every fight is going to be interesting, and don't hype every single fight, i.e., Uber similar, up. Right? Like let's be honest. That's what they
don't
do. That's
remind
what
me
they
of that
do.
disappointment. Yeah, I
But
mean,
like I get it. It's hype casting. It's part of the esports thing. I don't think it
I
helps
think
them for
when you lack
longevity
in
though.
when I'm speaking about similar now, when you lack on knowledge, right, and understanding and insight, you have to offset it, right? He has to. What's the easiest thing for him to do? Uploads, hype it up, like, oh, look at that huge revive. I'm like, dude, what?
Well, but it's not just him though. I mean, like
I
talk
know.
about Uber. Uber, everyone
Uber is
loves
the
Uber.
same.
He has brilliant wordsmith skills.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take that away from him. And I know we're on a tangent here, but I need to go on this tangent for a second, Jax, because it bothers me from conceptual point of casting here, which is if you create intensity about every single thing that you do, then you're going to get what we get, which is burnout, because it's trying to draw your attention into every single engagement, and I don't think that's necessary. Some engagements, honestly, are going to be a bit more muted. An attacking force with no ultimates, unless something miraculous happens, don't hype that up, right? You can
Right.
you can be honest. Be honest with the viewers about it, and don't over uh, like we get desensitized to the hype, whether we want to admit that to ourselves or not. I think that is true. Now, granted, okay, bias state my bias here. You know what? I grew up listening to radio for like hockey and football and baseball, so I come through this lens of maybe a little bit more dry casting, right?
Right.
Where these days it's more built on hype and building up energy values, and that's still something new I'm getting used to, so keep that in mind, guys. Let's also get hyped up here for Boston versus Valiant. Okay, no,
Levels.
seriously.
This game, no. But see, here's the thing. If we were having a feature game of the week for the week, there's a very good chance that this would have been it. Um, for Boston, playoff spot already secured. Boston is playing for the overall first place of the stage so that they can pick their semifinal opponent for the playoffs. New York had only lost one game. In fact, it was to Boston. Wait, no, they didn't play the stage, did they? No, they did. They did. They did. New York had only lost one game, and it was to Boston. So Boston can't take games off if they want to finish one first. Not only that, but they're undefeated in the stage, and so they want to be the first team to go through an entire stage without losing a game or a series, I should say. And so here we are, Boston Uprising versus the Los Angeles Valiant. Pretty good series overall. You start out on Timber of Anubis was 2-1 Boston. Blizzard World 3-0 Boston. Quick
Yeah.
2-0 for Boston. You're not surprised with how well they're playing. Then you go to Nepal. Los Angeles Valiant 2-1. Route 66 Valiant 3-2. Tiebreaker Oasis 2-1 in favor of the Valiant. And you look at the numbers on that tiebreaker on Oasis Leplos, 100-46 Boston, 100-99 Valiant, 100-99 Boston. What a series.
Yeah, it ended up being very, very engaging actually for where we were. I mean, obviously Boston pulling it back there and close one at that. I mean, back and forth in Oasis, but you were probably on the edge of your seat if you're a Boston fan for how close that Valiant pushed you here, almost with a reverse sweep. I mean, obviously there's some problems here showing little cracks from the uprising showing in this game, right? Like
Right.
Valiant up and down team. They sort of honestly, I felt they had a stronger start to the season or a stage. Here at the end of the stage, they showed up well against the uprising, but last week or two, I had questions. And here they're. I mean, I say that because I picked them a couple times and they failed me completely. And here they were.
No, listen, you're absolutely correct. But their schedule to start was weak.
That is true.
Some people started strong, some people started weak. They had a weak schedule. Even when they beat the Gladiators in Battle for Los Angeles, to me that was more the Gladiators losing than the Valiant winning. And I don't know if I said it on the podcast. I know I said it on TeamSpeak or in Discord where I said I'm not sold on this team because they hadn't been pushed. Now they were pushed, and I'm a little bit more sold on this team because of how well they played Boston. To go down 2-0 and then to not give up, right? To fight back on Nepal, to fight back on Route 66. And then I just stopped by Winston Labs. I put the link on our schedule. And something stood out. I remember watching this, even though I didn't take notes, because if I take notes, we're going to be here for 2 hours. So I didn't take notes. However, the thing that reminded me was like Stryker played very well this game. And I go
Except
to
for
Oasis.
Route 66, though.
Lepos, you say that. Look at Route 66. He is the only person with a positive
it's a tracer.
death ratio.
It's a tracer, Jax. You'll find in losing, a lot of tracers still have positive. Like here,
okay, Lepos,
Bunny 17 and 12 on Oasis. He has a positive KD there. But
Lepos,
do you say that's equal to?
You say that, right? But you take Route 66 +3 for Stryker, -6 for mistakes on DPS.
Yep. But I look at Bunny on the opposite faction on Tracer on Route 66, and you'll see the difference there.
No, it's not just that, but I'm also looking at the Diva player Note 7 and 7. But that aside, I remember Stryker playing very well, and I get to map 5, and I'm looking at the Elims to death because for a DPS that is what stands out, Lepelos. And me and my crusade against Tracer because she is in fact overpowered. That is a fact. People just have to learn to accept that fact.
I mean, as much as we...
19, 25 and 6 for Stryker. And on King of the Hill, on Oasis Lepos, where you see Tracer all the time, you take a look at the two players, Stryker for the Uprising, Bunny for the Valiant, +19 for Stryker, +3 for Bunny. That's it. That's the series right there.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I still think Bunny did really well on Route 66, and then Stryker just came right back on Oasis and shut him down hard.
I mean, when I'm making all of my comparisons here, or mistakes -2, agilities -4, take a look at the Divas, Note +8, Space +6, Gamsu -1, Fate -4. It's the trace. While those are 2 to 3 off, it's the huge discrepancy here when it comes to the tracer play, and even on the other maps, where Boston won the first 2 maps, you look at it, Stryker playing, better than Bunny on the first 2 maps, and then you flip it around where Bunny is now playing better than Stryker. Well, not in the case of Nepal because he wasn't in there. It's just, I just look at it, I'm saying to myself, it always comes down to the tracer.
I mean, we saw
I'm
Stryker do that last week as well too. Yeah. So here we are again.
I'm foreshadowing somewhat of our playoff talk tomorrow because for me, and for those who haven't watched it, and you do watch it, it'll come down to the tracers. Like it's incredible play there, and for here, it's just Boston with it all on the line, right? Them wanting to keep first place, them wanting to stay undefeated. Stryker stepped up, being the MVP candidate that we all. Not that everybody is talking about right now, and not just that, but him trying to supplant Sabobi as the best tracer. And as of right now, and I feel as of right now, he has done that. But
Speaking
congrats
of
to them. Yeah.
NYXL though, and playoffs potential, NYXL pretty much through at this point. Here, third game of day 2, taking on the Fuel. NYXL technically at quote unquote home for this
I
one.
think they
It doesn't
could
really matter.
catch. I think they had a chance to catch the map differential of Boston if Boston were to lose, but that first place is not really in their hand. It's in
Yeah,
Boston's hands.
it's in Boston's hands so long as NYXL wins their
Right.
games. This game was pretty much a shoe-in of Dallas Field not taking a single map score lines. 2-1 Anubis, 2-1 Blizzard World, 2-0 Nepal, 2-1 Route 66. Listen, I know it's only 2-1, but that's because home team attacked second. So
Lepelos, let me give you numbers right quick. 303 seconds left on Anubis for the Excelsior.
yep.
On Blizzard World, 188. Nepal was, you said, it was 199 and 100-0, and then Route 66, the Excelsior had 253 seconds left in the time bank when they capped it out. This is the Dallas Fuel being the Dallas Fuel and not really being competitive. Like I said before, I'm sorry. I know the Dallas Fuel are the most popular team. If you look at,
you can see, like, I mean, they had fun against Fusion too. I forgot to
right.
mention Seagull on that May defense on B point. Anubis back then, they held that. They just couldn't convert it.
I mean, if you take a look at it, right? If you take a look at something that we can measure, the whole bits thing on Twitch, right? You can donate bits in the name of your team.
So revenue
The
that
Dallas
we can
Fuel,
actually see.
the Dallas Fuel are number one, Lepelos. They're
insane.
the most popular team, and yet here they are down there at the bottom with Shanghai. And honestly, I think it was a lot of this is because Effect is not there. I think Dallas would be a lot more competitive were Effect around. But if you were to take this Dallas team without Effect and have them play Shanghai, I think we might be talking about Shanghai getting their first win.
Yeah, that is true. Shanghai plays in the next day. We'll come back around to them when they take on the New York Excel. But let's go move on into the next day, talking about LA Gladiators trying to upset the stage leaders in Boston Uprising. This is the one that could play spoilers for Uprising. Gladiators need every single map and ideally in a win here to ensure their spot. It's in their hands, Jax.
I think
what happens?
I think that as of wait, this is the second as of this game.
Third day. Yeah.
Third. The Gladiators. Wait, this is their first game or second game?
The second game of the week. This one was to, if they win this game, I believe they would have secured themselves a spot.
If they win, they had it secured. If the map differential was -1,
like a 3-2 or a
3-2 or exactly, exactly. Yeah, Lepelos is already up to date. Basically, they needed to finish with a 1-game map differential to secure a playoff spot. A win guarantees it. Obviously, a -1 or a +1, whatever you want. Forget it, Lepelos. Let's get on to the scores.
Yeah. Let's start with the fact that Volskaya going the side of Boston. Jax, with that win, Boston a perfect map score line on Volskaya for the stage.
Yeah.
3-2.
Lepelos, their only loss on 2CP at all was Anubis versus the London Spitfire. That was what, week 3, I think? Yeah, it was Boston versus London on week 3, and London won that one 3-2. That is the only... It's amazing. But
talk about a game. I go back to what I have said. Winning the first map and last map in a series gives you the best chances for winning overall matches. And you look at Boston; they've done pretty well when games go to 5. Obviously, in the stage so far, they've been undefeated coming into this game. And Jax, they started off well on Volskaya Industries. It got better on Bonnie. Jax, what happened on Bonnie here? Just look at this big goose egg coming out of Gladiators. Disappointment is what we're hearing in Jackson's voice.
Disappointment, and then also that was me going to Winston Labs to pull up the numbers because I'm on a numbers train right now, and the only one with a positive KD was Fisher,
which is incredible because if you look at a lot of teams with a losing scoreline or in a loss, even in a win, often the Winston player will have a ratio for eliminations to death sub
his
1.
counterpart Gamsu 2-2, so
exactly.
He finished at 0,
and that's a win.
Fisher 4-3.
So maybe Fisher worrying about too much about himself in this. Is that what we're trying to say? He's
a default? No. This was just this. I'm sorry, this was just the Gladiators being completely outplayed. And sometimes there are no big secrets to it. You're just bad, and in this instant, this was the Gladiators being bad. This is gonna come back around on something later on, but I look at Sure 4. We talk about him having stepped up and him being a carry, not with 1 kill, 1 elim, 4 deaths. You look at Asher, Leplos, DPS, 2 elims, 4 deaths. You take a look at Bishu. When your diva player is 1 and 3, no, they were done.
Yeah,
Nepal
they're
next.
done. You're already down 2 maps, Jax. At this point, if you you can't even get a draw at this point, so you need to win
Right.
the 2 maps to ensure your spot. It's in your hand. They'd managed to come back Nepal 2-1 for Gladiators. And Jax, Route 66, they did well. I mean, both teams pushed it to 3. Gladiators able to get it through A point on their push. That seems like that should be reasonable, right? Like most teams, you should be able to hold there, but Uprising managed to hold them early in that second, and early enough that they themselves were able to cap out that distance.
I watched this. I was heartbroken while I watched this. If you look at the numbers, you said the numbers favor the KDs here, favor the Gladiators, Leplos. The numbers are in the Gladiator favor. It's that closeout. I think how
Strongly
to
in favor, we
define
should also
closeout,
mention.
Leplos, for people who are unaware. That killer instinct, that when the moment is upon you and you have to make it right. You have it's not a choice. It's an instinct, really. And you say, we're not going to lose. We're going to win. And you step it up. And I never really see the Gladiators flip that switch. If you take a look at the games that they win, it's like they're moving at the same speed all the time. And when they need to take it up that one extra notch, it's not there. Here on Route 66, with their playoffs aren't on the line, right? They still have the inside favorites here. It's just to guarantee their spot. Not only that, right? But to prove something, to beat the undefeated team in the stage, to beat the best team in the league right now. This is the kind of momentum you want to take going into the playoffs, Lepelos.
Yeah.
And they let it go.
I know we're going to talk about it again later, maybe in the playoff segment, but I just going to mention here on Route 66 the difference in your Tracer players, +5 on the KD here for Asher, +10 for Striker. I want to say this instead of talking about them because I know we'll come back to this tomorrow. I want to say Striker, though, I believe is very good at getting the effective kills, right? He's both clutch and good at picks.
I remember this. There were 2 fights. You know, the Gladiators on their second attack, they made it through the first point and got stopped, going towards second. Final fight of the first point, Striker onto both Gladiator supports. Shaz and Big Goose down. You go into the fight, really the only fight of the second stage, right? What happens again? Striker onto both supports. I was saying to you, I've been saying it ever since then. If I'm Asher, I don't need you to go off and kill everyone. I need you to do one thing. Stop Striker from beating your team. Make anyone else on that team step up and win. Let them prove that they are the champions and have that killer instinct. He never did it, Leplos.
Yep.
He is still wandering around on Route 66 he's saying to himself, how did Striker do it? Because Striker carried the Boston Uprising to this victory here.
Not only that, Jax, let's also talk about in the last fight that here on Route 66 as well, where they could have won. I in my opinion, should have won based on the fact that they got into second phase decently enough. Last fight, they used more ultimates and had more ultimates than Uprising and still lost that fight in OT.
When I saw Striker get in on both supports, I says, okay, they didn't learn anything. I'm like, he just did it the previous fight at the end of the first point, and he just did it again. I said 2 things. Sure 4 has to pop off, and Striker has to be dealt with. Neither one happened. I mean, listen, Sure 4 didn't do bad. Sure 4 was good. I think
Sure 4 played well. Sure 4 played well. But this comes back to an important phenomenon, obviously. Stats matter, yes. Context also matters. Here, yes. Striker getting
target selection.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I should say it like this. not every kill and not every death is equal.
Rebels.
Striker better at finding the key kills here coming through for the Uprising to get the 3-1. And Gladiators, guess what? Their playoff chances again are out of their hands.
I have to point out that mistakes, Leplos, -1 elims to death here. And they still won! Shocking. Short 4, +10. Mistakes, -1. Say hello to Stage 3 MVP Striker. He's Leplos. What did I say? The winners, the champions, the MVPs, when that time comes, they step up.
Yep.
And that's what
Okay,
he did
Jax, let's talk about a former champion of another stage ago.
Okay.
We're talking NYXL taking on Shanghai Dragons here.
Oh boy.
Numbani,
Oh, boy.
NYXL strong on Numbani, but here, this is the one map Shanghai Dragons take, 3-2. That's the second map of the series. I'm just cutting this down because, Jax, you would not expect NYXL to lose to Shanghai
They
Dragons on
took
Numbani.
their foot off the gas so hard. I remember this was the Dragons holding right before third, and then when the Dragons went, like it was literally momentum that followed them through on their attack. They did what
They
they
played
had to
well.
do. This I think was New York getting a little too comfortable because it's Shanghai, and this is the result. I also have to point out, Leplos, and even though we didn't talk about it before, because this is the Janus effect, and I get it. You know, the coaches have talked somewhat about why they're doing this, why they're putting Janus out there. They want him to have that experience. Leplos, if Mano goes down with a broken toe, at least Janus will not come in here without
Oh,
knowing
man.
what's going on.
Yep.
Hear me out though, right? Let's say Fate for the Los Angeles Valiant, right? He has a bad In-N-Out burger and he's down with food poisoning. You're gonna put in Numlock, Lepelos? What has Numlock done?
Yeah.
Numlock has done nothing for the last 4 months.
Yeah.
This is what the New York Excelsior want to avoid. Not only that, we've been talking about burnout. How do you avoid it, Lepelos?
Yeah, these are great questions. I think NYXL has taken their foot off the gas a little bit this stage, and it's worked well so far. Obviously, though, it puts them into a different position. They can do it, or it seems that they can do it because they're so far in the lead of their overall standings right now.
I mean, plus
and they had an easy week this week too.
With that and with Boston beating the Gladiators previously, there's no way for them to catch them because it's 8-0.
Undefeated.
Like, nothing they can do. So this game,
Okay, Jax, let's talk about the real meta this week to discuss, and that was Janus's play overall. He did all right, but more importantly, we had predictions. You had in the first game against the Fuel, you had predicted Janus for 3 games. I got it right at 2 games. Yeah. So this game we both predicted 2 games. He only got in 1 game against the Shanghai Dragons. I think that's because they lost here.
Yeah. And that should tell you why. Well, Jax, why did you give him more games against Dallas? Because as of right this moment, I rate the Shanghai Dragons higher than the Dallas Fuel. That's why.
And they took a map off of NYXL too. That's huge.
If they hadn't, we would have seen him for 3. I don't think he would have gotten 4 because they do want Mano to stay fresh with the playoffs coming. But yeah.
Jax, speaking of tanks, let's move on to day 3, game 3, where we had Spitfire taking on Seoul Dynasty.
This would have been another candidate for game of the week.
Surprise coming out here. Huge surprise coming out. Take us through the Dynasty lineup here and how you felt about the lineup on the entry walk.
I mean, I'm sitting here for a second. I had to clean my monitor because I was like, "What am I seeing?"
Well, good thing, Jax. Let's start with the good news. Fleta out off the start this time.
Right? You have Fleta. You have the other good news is Zumba. I rate Zumba higher than I do Zephyr. You had Gambler. You had Guido. At this point, I am concerned, Lepelos. Gambler and Guido means you don't have Toby. You don't have Ryu Jae-hong. They brought in Munchkin as the second support. You know me. I like Toby. I like Ryu Jae-hong. I worry about the Dynasty when they don't play these 2 players. And then I had to double check. This is why I had to clean my monitor, Lepelos, because I'm looking. I don't see Miro. I don't see Kuki. So at this point, I'm saying, who is missing here? Because I only have 5 players, and they need 6 to play the game. And then we get the word Ryu Jae-hong is going to main tank.
Is this like a Dallas
But
Fuel moment? Do you think, Jax?
Lepolos, you're saying was Miro and Kuki? Did they both go to In and Out and get the bad burger and were stuck in the restroom? Is that like mind is blown at this point because
Like one.
Lepolos, what they talked about is Soul, and by Soul, I'm also adding in Lunatic High, never beating GC Busan.
Which
And when I
is,
say never beating GC Busan, they have never taken a map off of this team, Lepolos.
I mean, they do here in this game. This is actually a really good game.
What are you talking about? Good game. Ryu Jae-hong maintained good
I
game.
know, it's surprising. Okay, well, on the other side, we're actually seeing Birdring again. We've had Birdring out for a bit, so here they're taking Dynasty serious. Dynasty not taking themselves serious, maybe.
Yeah.
Or we're wrong here, Jax, because this one, let's just go through it. Let's go through it. Starting game one, Volskaya Industries, Dynasty win. They win with Ryu Jae-hong in 3-2 right off the bat. No, I mean they. Okay, let's talk about Nimbani next. Nimbani here, we end up with. I mean, we still don't have any changes coming out of the Dynasty for this. I guess you win, you keep the same players in.
My mind is still blown here that they took that first map. But okay, here's the deal. What we talk about the Korean teams and how big a part preparation plays in how they perform. There's no way you can, unless you have a spy in the scrims, there's no way you can be prepared for Ryu Jae-hong playing Winston. You can't. Levelos, you can't. You cannot tell me that they prepared for that. So there's no surprise then that Seoul took it. And then you look at the second map, Nambani, 3-2 London. They made the adjustments. They had figured it out. Lepelos said, okay, they got us once. We're not going to fall for it anymore. And then you go to Ilios, 100 to 99, 100 to 44. But even then, Lepelos, you have to say it's fine. Why is it fine? Because London is not the best on King of the Hill.
And not only that, though, you're like, well, Birdwing, let's sit him again because he's semi-injured. We should get it from here. Put Hureg back in. Some casters seem to like Hureg a lot. He is like a poor libero, in my opinion. He's like a poor libero.
Hureg, 6 and 7, -1. Fleta, 11 and 5, +6. Munchkin, 10 and 3, +7.
It's okay though for Spitfire. You're going to Junkertown. They're going to bring Wakid in.
No, what do you mean Wakid? Why?
Because Junkertown, Jake Rat comes out, but of course it's a dynasty, so it's the Wakid Rat, which defensive Junkrat coming out.
Why do they do this? Is it? This thankfully it wasn't Mani and Doa. Otherwise, Mani would be trying to tell me that Wakid is playing his defensive Junkrat again, which is absurd. But what happened here?
Okay, well you still have Hureg in on the side of London.
No, for crying out loud,
on the side of London, and they don't hit their shots as Hureg as your Widowmaker, and you don't run the Bastion strat. You run a 3-1-2 strat here, and honestly, Bedosin not strong enough of a Zen to carry London Spitfire through. That's, in my opinion, the wrap up I can do. It's more about Spitfire not doing what they need to do here, more than it is Dynasty.
But they
overwhelming
did it,
Spitfire.
Like the Spitfire did it. They took the map. It's just
you're not impressed with their output here, right? Like if they didn't have if they had maybe a regular Junkrat, say like Fleta in instead of their defensive Junkrat in, I think Seoul Dynasty probably would have won this map anyways.
I'm not gonna say that Junkrat is easy and anybody can play Junkrat. That is not the case.
But we have seen Fleta run a decent Junkrat.
The problem I have is that's all they did was run him on the rat. If all he can do is play it's the same. It's the Jake problem here, Lepelos, because there comes a point where if it's not working, flex.
Yeah.
If you're gonna flex, at any point you're gonna flex, you run Fleta because he's the best flex you have. You don't run Wakid, and I don't want to hear nothing about defensive Junkrat, because the defensive Junkrat doesn't help you on the attack levels, which they failed to complete 2 points in 97.76 meters, and then London is like, hi, London, we got all 3. we're now going to a map 5, and oh my God, London is going to Oasis. And
You
I
gotta
went
be,
and
you're
looked
like,
at the general manager for the London Spitfire, Susie Kim. I went to her Twitter page, and when it was happening, she was like, "Oasis, oh my." Well, let me see. Her exact words were, and my internet wants to slow down. Holy crap! She posts a lot of stuff on
she
Twitter.
does post a lot of
All
stuff
she
on
wrote
Twitter.
was Oasis, period, because everyone knows that London and Oasis don't really go well together. However, this is
I don't think like here's where I think I have a problem with Soul. Like, okay, Ryu Jae-hong stays in on tank, but good news, Flood is back in. Bad
I like
news, we're starting on University, so they're going with their Reinhardt, Zarya, Diva, Junkrat combination, but it has to be an attacking Junkrat because of course you're attacking, so that's why you bring Fleta in. And London Spitfire just go dive. They just go dive here, Jax. Because everything that they've run in the past has not worked, and
this.
honestly, it's better for them here. And Dynasty, I don't think had the level of practice with this comp with Ryu Jae-hong on tank that they would need to in order to make this work.
The other problem I have here with the Dynasty is, and while normally I wouldn't have a problem with it, they brought in Toby. Toby didn't play in either of the previous 4 maps, and then now you bring him in just to play. I get it, he's a Lucio guy, but Lucio not universal, and all he did was play Lucio Lepelos. And when you go back, and yes, I know he's a support player, Lucio gets kills. Believe it or not, Lucio gets eliminations at times. 0 and 6 for him on Lucio. And then I said, wait, wow. So then I went and I looked at numbers here, and it was 100 to 99 for the London Spitfire Lepelos. It was 100 to 37 for the London Spitfire. So yes, London has won Oasis for the 3rd time all season, I think.
Which is not a lot considering we've had a stage where that was played very often for them.
And then I'm looking here now at their kills, Lepelos. Not a single person for the Seoul Dynasty had a positive elims to death. Munchkin, the Tracer player, 7 and 7, so he finished at 0.
Oh, this comes up to something else I wanted to ask you. Fleta on Sombra, do you like that? I will jump in on here, but go ahead. What do you think?
I don't like it because Sombra, for me, Sombra is support. Sombra harasses. She gets the hacks. She can assassinate as well.
She's
being able to see the low health targets, right?
Like a sneaky character.
No, you don't want Fleta. You don't want Fleta to sneak. Fleta, Lepelos, he is your bat that you take upside their head when you're looking to put them down. When you're looking to put someone down, right? Yes, you can sneak and, you try to be, Metal Gear Solid, right? You want to sneak in, get the kill, and get out. By the way, fantastic video of AKM playing Metal Gear Solid. I'm going to have to find that and post it on Discord. I did already. I have to find it again. I know it's off topic here. For those of you, just look up AKM Metal Gear Solid. I'm sure you'll find it someplace. Absolutely fantastic video of AKM playing Metal Gear. But in this instance, Fleta does not need to play Metal Gear. Fleta needs to come out. He's playing Battlefield, Lepelos. He's coming with the big guns, and you need him to pound the Spitfire into the ground. But no, he was playing Sombra.
Yeah.
And
I
don't know, how many times have we seen Fleta with a negative elims to death ratio on any map?
He might be their best Sombra player, but I honestly think this needs to be a role that Munchkin picks up, and Fleta has the more backbone DPS because I think that's a better combination with the DPS that they have here.
But you still want the Tracer though. I think.
But they didn't run the Tracer though.
The plan.
They didn't run the Tracer. They ran the McCree Sombra.
Why? Wait. Oh, I'm kind of confused. Wait a minute. Why is Munchkin on McCree?
Questions remain.
Lepelos.
We don't know, Jax. We're going to leave them as an open end.
The Dynasty coaches again. You got away with it, right? You got away with running Ryu Jae-hong. Just take that. But then I like Toby. I like him a lot. Great Lucio. Don't bring him in cold to play Lucio and do nothing but die.
I suspect that this comes down to not having practiced Game 5 Oasis with the current comp. Jax, let's go ahead. Stop talking about this disappointing final map for Seoul Dynasty. we did talk about Ryu Jaehong here performing. We'll come back around to this in a little bit. Spitfire though closing out finally on Oasis in a map 5, and they have another game first thing the next day. We've mentioned scheduling.
Okay, nope, I'm not.
We're not going to mention it again. Shanghai also played the game
but
before. This week, definitely terrible for it. Maybe we can talk about
Boston
that
and
one.
Gladiators play back to no.
Boston Gladiators.
Take us on to the next one. San Francisco, back-to-back games. Why?
Why? Mayhem, just a game away from back-to-back as well. Listen,
Okay.
NYXL, a game away from back-to-back as well. Like, every team seems to face it for the most part, except for a couple of teams in here. But let's talk about the next day. Shanghai Dragons taking on London Spitfire, and Spitfire coming out feeling good, I guess, after their win. You know, the shutting down Dragons quickly on Anubis, 2-1 there, 2-1 on Bonnie, 2-0 on Nepal. They get that win, and then they take their foot off the gas. Junkertown, Shanghai Dragons showing up on Junkertown. Not the first time that they've impressed on that map.
This is one of their better maps. I think people. I think teams are. I don't want to say they. I don't think they're giving the maps either. I think that the teams literally just back off the gas, and when you lose that edge, Stage 1 Shanghai Leplos would have still lost this map. Would have still lost that map against the New York XL. That's Stage 1 Shanghai. Stage 3 Shanghai and the improvements that they've made. If you give it to them, they will now take it. And if you give too much, you will be the team to lose the first game to Shanghai. Don't think you want to be that team.
It's going to happen. I mean, last week we saw Philadelphia Fusion get pushed to 5 because of them. But here, Shanghai is going to have to wait until another stage. And by the way, they beat
0-29. They
0-29, over 100 maps lost already.
Leplos, no team in any sport, has lost 29 straight games.
Yeah, no, it's I think they only have themselves to blame for it in terms of keeping around the same people for too long. But let's go ahead and discuss game 2. Seoul Dynasty here going against the Outlaws. Jax, Ryu Jaehong still on that tank. I'm feeling like, okay, maybe the Outlaws, they have everything they need here. I picked them. They have that chance. They've shown that they can beat Dynasty many times in the past based off Dynasty not being able to handle them. But this time, let's go through it. Temple of Anubis 2-1 Dynasty. Nimbani 3-1 Dynasty. 2-0 Ilios Dynasty. Junkertown 3-2 Dynasty. It's a 4-0 victory for Dynasty. I am frustrated at this Outlaws team, Jax. And I am also very strangely impressed with the play coming out of Dynasty with their changed up roster.
I wish this game was yesterday. So the individual data is not up on Winston Labs here, and I don't have a searchable database. But one thing I do remember is this is the worst game I've ever seen Raucus have on support.
Yeah, he got dominated. Let's be honest.
That to me is the most telling thing, because right now Zens and people who play Zen and whatever they flex to, it's incredibly important for how your team performs. So when I tell you Raucus played the worst or had his worst game, I'm not surprised that they were then swept by a Seoul Dynasty team being tanked by Ryu Jaehong. I'm still upset. Okay. Wakid starting on Anubis, I don't like it. He had a good game. Fine. Anyone can have a good game. I don't like this experiment, but the Seoul Dynasty coaches are going to live and die by it. That is fine.
We're going to see this all through stage 4.
Here.
Like, absolutely.
I know it. I know we're going to see it. And then you just look at it. 203 seconds left for Dynasty on Anubis. 147 on Ilios. Sorry, on Nambani. You go to Ilios, 100-79, 100-0. You go to Junkertown. Junkertown was rather close. It was an overtime push. Junkertown was the only map where the Houston Outlaws were semi-competitive. While I say Raucus had its worst game, this team, they have completely... This is bad.
You have to... I mean, we saw a bad game coming out of Raucus, but then the question is, do you think it's Raucus or the team that is failing him? Like, is this a free feel moment or is this a feels bad moment for?
I think it's a mixture of free feel, but more of a feels bad. Linkser, I think was it in the pregame there before we started recording? We were talking about Linkser a lot. I think he's tired. I don't know him. I have no insight into him. It's just,
We've
how
seen
can you
him go
not
up
be
and
tired,
down
Lepelos? He is.
previously.
See, that's the problem. When it's all on your shoulders, and what are you talking about? They got Jake, the team captain. He's Mr. Communicator. He's that's why him talking is why they have to have him, because he leads the voice comms.
Well, let's talk
This
Elios,
guy,
Jax, in terms of DPS, and you're mentioning this. Look at the kills coming out of the side of Outlaws on Elios and how low
Lepelos.
this was.
One thing I'm looking at it right now. I wish I had detailed stats. I really do. I don't. I'm looking at it now and I'm saying to myself, why was Clockwork at any point on Widow when they have Linkser? And the answer is why? Because Linkser has to play Genji, or Linkser has to play Trace. Not in this instance, but other times when you see Jake playing something, when you saw Jake on a Genji or Jake playing something not Junkrat, you say, well, why is he playing that? Because Linkser has to play Tracer. And Linkser is always having to play something, Lepelos.
Yeah.
I get it. He's a flex, right? So you have to be ready for that. But one thing that stood out, the number on the first round of Ilios, Hawkward had 0 eliminations as a DPS, Lepelos.
Yeah, it was a bad
Get out
series,
of here
and
with that
I know
crap.
we started off hard on Rockets, but let's be honest, Outlaws need a retooling of their strategies and
Lepelos,
communication.
I asked you this in the pregame. I'm asking you this now. How is it the San Francisco Shock can go out in the in-between stage and find Architect? How is it the Florida Mayhem can go out and find Saya Player? How is it that the only player the Houston Outlaws can find in all of Korea, in the entire world, to play DPS is Arhan?
Well,
The entire world.
listen. It's a small world after all, Jax, and
That is
when you pick from people you already know, it's an even smaller world, and Arhan's within that world for the Outlaws. I think that's a poor management decision, and it's not their first for the Outlaws, and you're
Lepelos.
seeing the
Let me
long-term
tell you
impacts of
this.
that.
I've been watching Mendo Kusai play a lot. He's playing the
He was on the
Hanzo.
streamer challenge too, Jax.
Lepelos. If
Did he
stage
win
4
that? I
comes,
think he won that. I might be wrong.
if stage 4 comes in 10,
He's-
11 days, and the new Hanzo is in, and Mendo Kusai is not playing for the Houston Outlaws, I will never mention his name on this show again. I will no longer consider him a professional Overwatch player because he is not one. What is he there for? What?
At least IDDQD is like serious about his position.
He at least started scrim. With IDDQD, it's
He was
coaching
honest about
staff
it with
literally not
people.
wanting to play him.
Yeah.
They didn't even let him scrim. This is Mendo completely gone. And I'm sorry, when you're struggling with DPS, right? And in the entire, let us think about this, the entire world.
We'll come back to the world
the
in a
only
little
thing
bit,
you
Jax.
can think of is Arhan. That is a disaster.
Let's get on to the last game of the week. Here, this one had playoff implications. Philadelphia, if they managed the 4-0
4-0.
against Valiant, they would get through. Gladiators would be out. Valiant here also wanting to shore up their position within the playoffs. Not that it mattered too much, to be honest, because it doesn't actually matter depending on the pick of the top
Here's the thing.
seed.
For stage 3, this game didn't matter for the Los Angeles Valiant.
Yeah.
For the overall season 1 playoffs, this game matters a lot.
Yeah.
They are in the fight for that 6th playoff spot, Lepelos, with 3 and 4 other teams. So when they say every map matters, it does. Every game matters, and they had to play to win.
Yeah, and they certainly came out strong. I mean, you're hoping to the Valiant here would allow your Gladiators to get in. They start off doing just that. Volskaya Industries 2-1. Immediately Fusion already done.
Yeah.
Already done. And surprisingly, they still managed to pull off a Nimbani 4-3 against Valiant. Valiant getting the 2-0 Nepal, Route 66 going back to Philadelphia, although that's a strong map for them, 3-2. And then we end up on an Oasis 2-0 where Philadelphia Fusion looked a little flat in, and Valiant securing an important win in a 3-2 match here against the Fusion and secure a better record overall. Again, didn't matter here for the stage, but
Peppos, I mean, we're gonna go over this probably crap. See, I was gonna say next week is when we normally do our preview show for the next stage, but there are finals for contenders around the world, so we're gonna actually have Overwatch to talk about. I just want to point out though that as of right this moment, at the end of stage 3, is this? Oh my goodness, where are my overall stage standings? I just had it. Overview standings. There we go. The New York Excelsior are the first team to clinch a playoff spot. End of season 1 playoff spot. The big playoffs, the one everybody is working for. New York Excelsior 27-3 are guaranteed a spot. The top 6 teams make it overall. 2 teams are guaranteed: the winner of the Atlantic Division and the winner of the Pacific Division. Sure, these divisions don't really matter, right?
Yeah.
Except for in this instance, where right now the Seoul Dynasty 1911 are the winners of leading the Pacific Division, so they will have that spot if they win the division. The Valiant are in 5th place at 18-12. So when we say that game mattered, Lepelos, the 6th place team is the Philadelphia Fusion, now also at 18-12. And then after that, you've got the Houston Outlaws and Los Angeles Gladiators, both at 16-4. So going in to stage 4, Houston and Los Angeles have to come up with 2 wins somewhere. They have to make up that differential. They need at least 2 somewhere, Lepelos, against the Valiant and the Philadelphia Fusion. We'll see. But every game does matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a hard one. But that said,
here's the thing, Lepelos, one thing that we didn't talk about, which is odd, I guess, because, I guess we're trying to hurry up here a little bit. But we do have to point out, we've been talking a lot about burnout this episode. Against the Valiant, the Philadelphia Fusion did not play Carpe. Yeah. And everyone was like, where? They're fighting for the playoffs. Where's Carpe? And then this as well, Carpe was tired. He needed a break. And I'm like, at the time when they said that, I was like, okay, fine. They're thinking overall, right? They're not really thinking about this stage because maybe they didn't expect to win 4-0, and so the coaching staff's fine. We'll give Carpe his break. But when I stop and look at this, and I'm saying you now go from 5th place to 6th place, and you've got 2 teams knocking on your door, wanting to take your spot in the end of season finals, Lepelos. Can they afford to give Carpe a break?
I think it depends on how serious things were, and I think
Lepelos,
the mental pressure.
Let's talk about tiebreakers, right? Let's take a look at the tiebreaker would be map differential. Philadelphia Fusion right now, overall, all 3 stages, +9. Houston, +13.
Yeah.
They don't have that tiebreaker.
I agree with you, but I mean, you also look at how poorly. I think some of this break is because of how poorly Philadelphia did in the middle matches, like week 3 onwards. Like,
right?
They secured 1 win in the last, or sorry, 2 wins in the last 3 weeks, and those were against Shanghai Dragons and Dallas Fuel, and they got pushed to 5 in that win
this
over
was the
Shanghai
team
Dragons.
who came second in stage 2 a month ago. They were the ones going into the playoffs. They finished second.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. They need to come out strong for stage 4, so maybe they're trying to get him a rest for that.
Change the diet, man. Get him some more energy.
I don't think. Listen, maybe sous chef Joe Meister there trying to put something in the food to get himself in on some matches. I'm not entirely sure. Either way, they're not looking good at the exit.
They get to go to the bench. They now have the full roster for stage 4. Sato is now available.
That is true. So, do you think we will see him in over Fraggy at this point?
Okay, I was under the impression Sato was an off tank, but now I'm hearing he's a main tank. I like Fraggy. Fraggy's Winston has cost him this stage, Lepelos. A number of times, Fraggy goes
stage
in,
1 for that matter,
and
too.
he doesn't have a plan to get out. And when he goes in, and he doesn't have this exit strategy, he also doesn't really have a plan to get a kill or anything. He's just gone in there. And that's a problem. So we'll see. I'm expecting. The thing that I hate right now, we don't know what patch is being played for stage 4. We have no idea. We don't know if is Baguette in, is Hanzo in, which Hanzo. We don't know. That will determine a lot about who plays what. But
I think Brigitte is in, but we'll see. We'll see.
Which Baguette? 150 rally or 100 rally?
I think it's probably going to be 150 if I had to guess. But we don't know. They're probably
if they
talking.
Put 150 rally Baguette in the game.
I don't know, Jax.
We'll see.
We will see. I think the teams have to be discussing about this. Like, it's probably done in coordination with what the teams want. So I honestly do not know. Yeah,
No, the
absolutely.
team shouldn't have. No, this is the league. This is the league. This is numbers. Nate is supposed to be making. Forget the teams. The teams do what they're told.
Jax, the Blizzard allowed that to go through how many ever days without nerfing in the first place. Yeah. Do you want Blizzard to decide on the balance that should be in the game for the match? Like, I'm just gonna say that. Let's move on though. We have other things to cover, including Contenders.
We do have our we I guess we just kind of, do we want to talk about what happened with the playoffs, because this was on the same day,
we're going to talk about everything playoffs. I know it was on the Saturday, but we'll talk about.
They had the pickings.
They had the picking, but we're going to put that off.
Okay.
That comes with our playoff package coming here on
tomorrow
on our podcast tomorrow. Yeah. So let's go ahead though, talk about the rundown this week, because there was actually a number of other
I think there was
games going on. Well, yeah, there's one. That's the Pacific region.
Yeah.
Game played. I honestly fell asleep to this the other night, so did not get to catch everything.
Why did you fall asleep, What time of the day was this?
I mean, it was super late for us. I think it was like 4 a.m. or something for us watching. So
that's why I also fell asleep, because I have limited time to watch Overwatch.
Yeah, but I mean, like, even the fact that I was up was sort of surprising when it was on. But here we are. We were in the grand finals. Grand finals being, as we expected, between Detonator Korea and Blank Esports. And by the time I fell asleep, Blank Esports were up 2-1 against Detonator Korea. They won Ilios 2-0. Nimbani was very strong for Detonator Korea. Blank Esports, with a good hold on Horizon Lunar Colony, able to squeeze that one into a 2-1 victory. And then from there, Jax, 3-2 Dorado, 2-1 Oasis, 2-1 Hollywood for the 4-2 victory over Blank Esports. That's Detonator Korea closing it out for the solid win here in the grand finals of Contenders Season 1 in the Pacific region.
I mean, big win for them. I'm just tired and frustrated, because I look at this and I remember it was 2-2 and I went to bed and I wake up and I'm like, wait, how is it now 4-2? Like, what happened here? And I went to bed and I woke up the next day. You know what I had to do, Lepelos? Well, heck, the Overwatch League was on. And then the next day, well, heck, the Overwatch League is on. I don't have time to watch this 6-map final. I don't have time. I want to. I have to literally, I have to budget my Overwatch time. I play a little Overwatch, been playing more than I have lately. I don't have that much time to watch it. And I don't have another 2 hours here. I mean, considering how the playoffs went, maybe I do have time now. But solid win for Detonator. But if you're Blank, you have to be disappointed, Lepelos. All of your competition is gone. Ardian, gone. Blast Wolves, gone. Lepelos, that's the region. That is theirs for the taking. It's theirs. It's Blank. Finally, until
this Detonator Korea team comes into your region and says, "Hey, we're going to just win this one now," which is what happened.
Why is Detonator here, Lepelos?
And because
why are they not in the Korean
I don't know. I do not know. But clearly they're able to take it here. Is that cheating? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the semi-amateur, semi-pro level of play and allowing teams like is this national play? Is it regional team? Like, if your team is paying for, to compete in that region, but
to be fair, then I'll say, why is Blank here and not in Australia? Right?
And that's also true, right? Like,
Blank would have dominated Australia.
And that's sort of the point of, like, do you want better competition? Then you have to allow some teams to move around to find where they think they have better chances of winning. I mean, maybe surprisingly, nobody went to Australia to try and win that one, or no one went to South America. I mean, it's funny. You see, it's the nature of the game to try and find where you can compete to win, while also still having pretty good competition, right? Like,
I mean, if you take a look at the regular season, right? 5-0, 18-2 map line for Detonator Korea. 5-0, 17-3 map line for Blank. So, by the numbers, these two teams, they were competitive by the numbers. Detonator stepped it up in the finals, Lepelos. They won it. I'm sorry for Blank. I'm sure. Did Australia qualify for a World Cup? I guess we'll get into World Cup in a few weeks. A month and a half. We're not going to jump into that,
Jax.
But yeah,
we don't really have anything else to cover. But I think we should also mention, as you linked here, upcoming games. We have North America Contenders, May 12th and 13th for the semifinals and finals. In China, semifinals are on May 11th for us here on the
Should
Pacific.
say North America and Europe. They're in the Katowice, right? I believe so.
I think those ones are the European ones. I'd have to
Okay.
double check. But China also going on May 11th and then May 13th for the finals. And yeah, we're gonna have a bunch of games all in once.
Other regions. I think we're still waiting on the Australian final, which will be the week after these. We're still waiting on Korea Lepelos. See, this is what I'm talking about. I was so hyped for the Korean Contenders playoffs. Like, we actually stayed up. We watched those games, you and I both. And then, oh wait, sorry, it's not on the list. On May 12th, 1400 Korean time, 4 days, 23 hours from now, Ardent versus X6 Gaming. So we also have that final.
Yeah.
How we gonna squeeze in 3 finals here, Lepelos, into the rundown?
No, really tightly, Jax. But we'll do our best to do it. At least maybe give them a quick rundown of the scores. Of watching them intensely, I don't think it's going to be possible. But guys,
The best. Okay, please tell me these are not on the weekend. I need more time.
I think it's probably going to be all on the
That's
weekend.
loud.
But yeah, Jackson, you know what? I think that's probably a good point for us to call it here on this podcast, episode 86, where we talked about the end of stage 3. We have a special episode, of course, at the end of these stages. That will be tomorrow night. That's Monday, May 7th.
I'm a little deaf. See, this is why I run pop-up blocker, and I turned it off because I'm always on Liquipedia for Overwatch. And I said, you know what? I'll turn off pop-up blocker for them. And now I'm a little deaf because they popped up on me, and you'll probably hear it on my side of it. And now I've got a headache now.
I'm sorry about that.
Holy crap, dude.
Jax,
Okay. What were you saying? Sorry.
I was saying let's wrap this up, though. This is the end of the
perfect.
podcast for episode 85. We've got another one coming tomorrow on Monday,
If I can
May 7th.
hear Lepelos.
If Jax can hear, but guys, I do want to thank you guys for listening. You guys can reach out to us on the podcast at Overwatch. OW Rundown on Twitter. I'm at Leplos. He's Jax_Blake. We're on Twitch. I mentioned that. Twitch/Leplos. YouTube.
Twitch.tv/Lepelos. Yeah.
I mean, find us where you want to follow us and just do that. That's great. It will help us out. Let us know if you have any questions or comments or want to change the format. But unless you have anything you want to sign off on, Jax, I think I can hit that music.
Yeah, music. Dude, literal headache now because that was so loud. This is why I don't use a headset. Oh my god.
All right. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that, Jax.